You stand at this moment with two other men whom you consider to be your ally. These two men stand within 5 feet of you. Behind you and your two allies are all 3 of your families. Each man has 1 wife and multiple children to protect. The children sit at the back of the men. As you tune your back to your family and look forward, you see to the left another man with his family behind him. To the right, you see another man with his family as well. The group to your left have fundamental disagreements about what you consider to be basic human rights. All 3 families have their own resources in buckets near the children. You are in an empty white room and everyone must survive in this space for 90 days with the resources and special items they have been given. Each family has a similar quantity of resources and items, but they are not equal in value. On day 30, it is found out that the family to your left is nearly out of resources. They demand you and your allies' resources. Both of you refuse to give them any. There is no good reason that they should be nearly out of resources. It would seem they are gluttons. Day 40. It turns out the family to your right are nearly out of resources. Day 35-40. The family to the left has gotten violent and made threats. At this point, with 2 families nearly out of resources, you have good reason to believe that the family to your left will come to take the resources by force. Day 50, the family to the right are getting agitated. Surely it isn't right to allow the children of the other families to die? No one wants anyone to die. Day 55, you share resources with the family to the left and the right. At first, you tell the family to the left you will give them rations per day. They demand enough to survive another 30 days. Understand that the trial is 90 days and all family have enough to survive 120 days. Any intelligent and diligent family could easily pass this test with the amount of resources given. Your family has to share resources with the family to the right as well. After sharing with both, you may not have enough to survive 90 days. You start to see you need 1 less mouth to feed. You tell the family to the left they can only have rations per day as decided by you, and you warn the family to the right that you won't be helping them after this large deposit of resources. The family to the right apologizes and thanks you profusely. The man to the left and his wife attack you. The man to the right and this wife come over to assist. The man in the family to the left ends up dead in the brawl. His body is removed. His wife, resentful and angry, plans to sabotage your family. She plans to spoil the food by any means and tells you so. She makes an attempt to destroy resources on day 65. She succeeds in destroying a small portion and threatens to do it again. That next day at night, the neighbor to your right takes her life and you do nothing. Who is in the right? What would you do different?
Good morning. It's good to be back for another episode. Where we left off last time, I told you a scenario about the sheep and about the shepherd. So we're going to continue on to another scenario. In the scenario that I told you, I wanted you to see why it was important for the shepherd to go out and ensure the battles never came to their land. But I do want to be intellectually honest with you, and I do want to tell you a scenario under which it might be the case that the shepherds don't go and do this and that everything turns out all right. So I hope you were listening to the other story. You follow along. You kind of remember that we're world building. You remember that you have to use your imagination. These are just kind of examples. We're talking about actual sheep with wool, white wool, and actual hooves. Or if you want, you can think about the sheep with brown wool but actual hooves. And we're going to use our imagination, and we're going to think that these sheep have kind of like human brains. So they're thinking and they're processing information like we are. They just don't have disposable thumbs, so they can't quite do what we can do. And that's kind of why this story is occurring the way that it's occurring. At the end of, I think, this scenario or the next episode, I will tell you why we are telling a story, and the reason is because I like parables. I hope you know what parables are. If you don't, look up what a parable is, and if you've ever gone to Sunday school or church, you've probably heard a parable before. They're great for telling stories and grounding us in reality, but forcing us to imagine kind of hypotheticals or different situations, because sometimes for humans, We have to take ourselves, or our human nature in some kind of sense, I don't know if that's the way to explain it, out of the equation. We really have to step out and think past ourselves, and sometimes that's how we're able to understand something, but that is by all means how the majority of people operate. Remember back way early on how we talked about people, how they're self-centered, how they're selfish. The opium of the masses is pain and suffering, and that's what people have to go through to really begin to formulate good opinions or morals or ethics. Well, that's what I mean. That's essentially what I mean. Okay, so in this story that we go through, this herd does not want to expend resources on their shepherds going to distant lands and fighting battles and taking preventative measures so as to ensure that these battles don't come to their home. So what the herd has done in scenario B is the herd hasn't allowed it, therefore the shepherds don't. Therefore, in all these other lands, we don't contest them. We also don't contest the predators, even though we know they are predators. But in this scenario, what we have going on here is all our distant herds, even though they're not all our size and some are bigger, we all take active parts. We all have a stronger herd population. What I mean by stronger is superior. What I mean is they're intellectually a little bit smarter. We want to keep it even. But let's say that this herd happens to be just a little bit more shepherd-like. They're willing to foster a culture that produces more shepherds. They're willing to kind of take on some of their battles head on, and they're willing to participate with the shepherds in some of the battles to come. So that's what we see in multiple of our herds. Not every one of the herds, but let's say, remember how we talked about, I think we said there were 5 big herds, 7 big herds or something like that. Let's say every single large herd that is either our size or bigger, and maybe a couple smaller, all of us are very strong herds. All of us take serious the plans that our shepherds say that we need to take. We follow their advice. If they say this is not where we should graze because it's a dangerous area and it's going to be more difficult to defend us, well, then we're not going to do it. We're actually going to listen to our shepherd. We're going to adhere to their advice, and we're going to say we don't need to be here. We can go somewhere else. We can find resources somewhere else. But in order to keep ourselves safe, because we don't take preventative measures in other lands, and we don't know what the other predators are doing to amass power and come after us, we're going to listen to our shepherd. We'll do as we're told, and this is going to be better for the well-being of our society and better for our safety. So these herds are doing quite well. Every time that the predators have attacked these top 10 herds, let's say, and I don't remember how many herds we said there was last time, but we'll just make shit up, right? So we're gonna say 20. We're gonna say a total of 20 herds. So out of 10 of those herds are doing incredibly well. And that's kind of what we need, because the 10 herds that are doing so well are the bigger herds. We can trust that those herds are most likely not going to be taken over by the predators, therefore increasing the number of predators or corrupt herds that we're going to have to battle against or be concerned about. Instead of that happening, we have herds that we know are going to take care of themselves. They are rooted in reality. They are ready to go. They foster a culture for shepherds, and they assist their shepherds and adhere to their advice. Therefore, we don't think that we need to go out and we need to take preventative measures. We keep our shepherds home. We don't lose as many shepherds as we would because they're not going out to distant lands and fighting. We don't have to expend as much resources, and so it's better for our herds. Now, here's what's happening to the lower 10 herds. Let's say in the lower 10 herds, out of that 10, you have 3 that are doing just as good as the upper 10. Even though they're smaller herds, they're doing good because they are just ferocious, right? This herd, they're just like, this warrior instinct is just natural in them. Like, they are fighters, and they're gonna do whatever it takes to defend their lands. They have higher casualties of sheep, higher casualties of shepherd, but the other, let's say another 3 out of the 7 that we have left now, another 3 kind of participate with them. They assist them. Sometimes they'll group together and they'll fight together. So they stay in very tight-knit, close lands, and they help each other with, pulling security so they can see what threats are coming. And the top 3 herd in this situation, they actually do take preventative measures. So we have 6 herds here that are working together total. They're pretty small. They're taking preventative measures and they're assisting each other. Now, our last three herds are small like everybody else, but they don't take preventative measures and they're just not as ferocious. Now, the small 6 herds, they don't always have time to assist them in their endeavors. They don't always have resources because those bottom 3 herds are not always super close to them. So they do help when they can, but they're not always able to. So they always tell this bottom, small 3 herd, hey, you need to actually expend something on your resources. You need to actually make sure that you're increasing your likelihood that you can fight off predators. What you're doing by not taking our advice is you're going to open up yourself to being invaded and losing those battles. You have to remember that if your shepherd lose too many battles, oftentimes just one, your whole herd will be taken over, and it might be the case that we are going to have to fight you in some sense, because you're going to be occupied and you're going to be forced to work alongside the predators. And in that case, if it comes to that, we may have to fight you, we may have to kill you, we don't really know, but we don't want it to come to that. So one thing that can happen is you can leave your lands, you can come with us, and you can join our herd. But those 3 herds say, no, we want our independence. We are a strong people, we have a good society. Now understand, these bottom 3 herds have an excellent society. They are a very safe society, they live a very peaceful life. They're kind of like, little Buddhas, they're just, right? That peace is just coming in, man. Can you feel it? Can you feel it, the peace? Yeah. So that's how amazing that society is. That people are doing well, they expend a great amount of resources on their social expenditures. So, they got free health care, they got great food. These guys are doing so well, right? And their philosophy is, well, we don't really do anything to anybody else, so we already know that the other 17 herds aren't going to attack us, so we don't really have to worry about them. And the nations of predators that have been taken over, we don't really have enough information about them to understand how big they are, how many of them there are. So I can't really tell you that part in the story, but all we know is that prior to there being 20, there were more herds, and those herds have disappeared. We don't really know exactly why those herds have disappeared, but there is a history behind it, so you can know. It's just that you'd have to pick up a book and read about it. But most sheep don't really care. They don't know their history. So more sheep don't really understand why it is that all those other herds don't really exist. They don't really care, right? Because that's what sheep do. They repeat cycles and they create hard times. So for them, it's just like, la-di-da, tweedledum, whatever the frick happens, YOLO, right? That's kind of how we're living here in these bottom 3 herds. So these herds, the bottom 3 herds, their life is going just splendid, right? They're doing really good. Let's say our top 10 herds, their lives aren't going quite as well. They don't spend as much on social expenditure. They don't have quite as well as healthy food, but at the same time, they're not going out fighting other people's battles. They're not, the world police. Okay, so we have to say that all 20 herds are really doing quite well, right? They're doing quite well. They're doing good for themselves. The top 17 don't really have to take preventative measures. They all think that because each other is doing what they're going to do, that the predators aren't going to amass enough power to go after them. Now, remember something about the predators is their numbers aren't stagnant. They can increase in numbers. Predators can build entire societies of predators. Now, here's something that I want you to know. It is easier for a predatory society to maintain and sustain their power and authority. I say it again. It's easier for a predatory, you know what? I say it different. It's easier for a predatory institutions and a predatory governing body to maintain and sustain authority and power. Remember that even in a predatory society where your rulers might be communist or dictator, where they might be more dictator-like, you're still going to have sheep. That's inevitable. You're still going to have sheep. But here's what happens. What happens is they force a certain level of thinking on their herd. They force them to foster a culture in which they raise up more predators. Another thing that I want you to note is the world kind of exists spiraling down in morality and in ethics and in strength. You see what I'm saying? We go from more orderly to less orderly. We don't just naturally become more orderly. Someone actually has to do something to make us kind of peak at orderly, and then we all, F up and we go to less orderly and continue on that which is natural for most societies. Because I adhere to this. I adhere to the fact that people are just naturally not that good. People are just naturally not that moral. So it's more natural and it's more reasonable to expect out of a society that they are becoming less ethical and less moral and weaker as time goes on. Right? They're going to seek more pleasures, such as sexual pleasures. They're going to seek easier times. That means they're going to seek things that make their life easier, things that feel better. Right? That's what they're going to seek. That's just natural. That's what's going to happen when you're in good times. So then that spiral of chaos begins, and we start going from more good to less good. That's always what happens. And then once you get to that so corrupt and so chaotic society, someone has to say enough. Someone has to actually do something about it. And when you get to that point, that low of society where you actually have to do something about it, man, that sucks. Oh, it sucks. You would hate to be the shepherds in that time. Those shepherds have it harder than any other shepherds. Whew, that sucks, man. You guys still following? You seeing what's kind of happening here? Is this world building making sense to you? Think here. I want you to think here. All right. The bottom three herds that we've been speaking of, what ends up happening to this bottom three herd is that they get overtaken. The predators come in and the predators overtake their herd. Now you might ask, well, why? If they're just good little sheep and they just stay on they're part of on the valley, and they're just doing their own good. They don't bother anybody. Why would they do that? Why? Because they're freaking predators. How about you take a step in reality? Because they're freaking predators. They don't need a good reason. Their intent is to gain power. Their intent is to enslave you. Their intent is to have what they want at the expense of your well-being. And their intent might not be to kill you, but they're not going to mind if they lose a few of you. They don't need a good freaking reason. Stop being so freaking naive. Stop being so naive. Minding your own business and being weak is not a good way to go about life. Because all it takes is someone stronger to say, oh, well, we want what you have. We're taking over your society. What are you going to do about it? Well, you call your friends. That's what the bottom three did when this happens. They called their friends. Hey, top 6 big tribes. Well, we sent a sheep over. We're going to need your help. We've been attacked. And you know what the top 6 say? They say, well, by the time we get there, remember the marching times? Quite marching times. By the time we get there, we're not going to be able to assist you. And we don't really expend our resources on going out and fighting other people's battles. You're going to have to assist yourself. We'll see what we can do, but we don't want to lose that many lives. So you're just going to have to assist yourselves. Now, here's what's happening. The top 10 herds have an alliance to where that bottom 6 that I was talking about, they have an alliance. They have what they call the EAU. So if something happens to one of them, they agree, because they're tight-knit, that they're going to go out and help each other. But this bottom 3 haven't participated in any alliance. They don't really need to. No one really goes out and fights battles, so, they don't really need to. And it's not in the interest of those top 6 to have an alliance with this bottom 3, because this bottom 3 isn't doing what they're asked to do. They don't have a culture in which they foster the amount of shepherds that they need. And so the bottom 6 kind of see this, and they go, well, we're just not really gonna have any kind of alliance with you. We don't have any problem with you, but you do your thing, we do our thing. We're not really gonna expend resources for you. So yeah, this bottom 3, they sent out all their sheep to get help from the other 17. And let's say 6 of the 17, they say, we'll send a small group, and if it looks too dangerous, we're headed back. But if we think we can win, then we'll see if we can help you. So 6 of the tribes send in their herds. They go in, they see what's happening, and the battle's already lost. But what the six groups are shocked about from the 6 different herds is the amount of predators that there are. They're shocked. They didn't realize just how powerful that these predators had become. So the 6 groups wait until the battle is done with the bottom 3 herds. After the battle is gone, the predators pull out. They go in and they bury the dead. They say prayers, they have funerals, they mourn the loss of innocent people. Because it's sad. It's sad to see all the children or the lamb strewn out dead, because some of them did die. It's sad to see the women laying out on pastures dead, some of them with blood running down their legs. It's sad to see the men that have been beheaded and tortured, strewn all over the ground. It is really tough to see the shepherds. So many shepherds that lie dead, knowing how hard they fought, seeing the way they're bruised and bloodied, their faces barely recognizable as they lay there on the pastures. Oh, what a sight to see. For the first time in a long time, those groups have a moment of fear. They have a moment of fear. They're starting to realize that these predators are becoming stronger, and that it's only an amount of time before these predators amount the power that they need to attack them. So they go home, they tell their six herds what they've seen. And the societies weep, they feel sadness. This is a terrible time. The amount of loss. This is a terrible time. So many people. And they know now that the number of their enemies have increased. Shepherds have a hard time sometimes taking a society and turning them into shepherds or getting them battle ready. But predators almost always succeed in taking societies and getting them battle ready. It's easier to sow chaos. It's easier to rule by fear. It's easier. For some time anyway. It's a sad story. It really is. If only there was something that those 3 lower herds could have done. If only there was something. Was there something? Well, what do you think? Was there something that they could have done? I just don't know. Was there something that some of the other herds could have done? I just don't know. I don't want to fill your head with just my opinion and my thoughts. Take a moment and ponder to yourself, is there something that could have been done here that would have prevented this from happening? Is there something? Now we're actually going to have a phase 2 of Circumstance B. But right now, I want to talk to you about something really important. There are a certain number of people in society that are okay if their lands were attacked and they were to die, and their children were to die, their neighbors were to die. They have come to this place in their life where they're okay with that. For them, that's all right. They don't really care. The way that they think about it is these huge wars that happen for more successful societies are so far and in between. And the loss that the predators have to incur is so much that they can't always just come in battling us. There's technically, as far as we know, more of our herds than there are of theirs. And we can somewhat know this because we know the other lands and what herds occupy the other lands. And once in a while, we can send our sheep to see and to talk. And that's how we get our information. So we're able to know at least what herds do exist and how they're doing. That we do know. It's too dangerous to go where we think that the predators might be. It's too dangerous. If they catch us, the likelihood that they let us go is unlikely. It's unlikely. So, there is a certain number of people in first world societies and second world societies that simply don't care to take preventative measures. They think like this: why expend resources on sending out our shepherd to fight certain battles? Why have our troops die in distant lands? Why even send out our shepherds to scout? That's risking their lives. Why do we need to do that? These battles are so far in between, and we have all these problems within our societies, such as the black sheep killing children, school shootings, mass murders, churches being shot up, the violent crime rate. We have so many of these things going on within our own herds, and we have our own struggles. Why fight the battle of tomorrow when we can just live for today? Why do that? Why do that? If we're going to lose something like 1,000, I don't really know, I'd have to look it up, 1,000 members of our society a year, after something like, I don't know, 10 years or 15 years, let's say we've only lost 15,000 or 20,000 members of our society, and we haven't taken any preventative measures, we haven't sent out our troops, and then the next war happens and we only lose 50,000. I mean, isn't that okay? Right? I mean, isn't it worth it? Isn't that a risk that we should be willing to take? You see, more people think like that than you'd imagine. That's actually how most people think right now. That's how most people think. We don't want to take preventative measures. We don't want to send our shepherds out to fight. We don't want to be the world police. We don't want to get ourselves involved. Let's just allow to happen whatever is going to happen. And then when it comes time for war, and we have to lose 50,000, 70,000, 100,000, let's just lose them. Now, if part of that 100,000 is my child and my wife, then I'm going to be angry. Then I'm going to change up, and I'm going to wish that something else had been done. Then I'm going to protest and shout how we should go off and we should mass slaughter all their people because they killed my family. And I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to take a different policy stance because I've changed. Now I've seen the evil in the world. Now my eyes are open and I really want to do something about it. Do you see it now? It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. Yeah. Yeah. You know? I don't pray. But I pray that's never what we allow. I pray that people open their eyes and they're really able to see how dangerous it is and anti-intuitive to think that we don't have to take preventative measures, that we don't have to be involved, that we don't have to know what's going on. No, we do. We need allies. We need them to booster up their militaries. We need them to foster cultures that increase the number of shepherds. We need them to be ferocious. We need them to be ready to fight. And we need our allies to actually take preventative measures alongside of us. When the battle comes to our home and we call upon them and they come and help, even though it's going to help and it might increase the likelihood that we continue to exist as our culture, and maybe it means we're not going to get occupied, but the losses are going to be larger than they have to be. Much larger than they have to be. Yeah. Think about that.